All right. So as you launched Unity, this is what it looks like. This is the play pause button, so you can go ahead and hit play to play your game. Always give it a few seconds, and then you can see you can play your game. And you can go above or beyond by just using the mouse button. You can see the skybox up there, and you can use the shift or alt, depends on which ones you use to actually walk faster and get to your destination. Okay, once you're done with the game, you can actually hit escape and then hit stop right there. So when we're going to be using these tools a lot, especially to test your game, we're going to keep hitting play and then stop and play and stop just to keep testing your game back and forth. As you can see in the game, the whole thing is just made out of planes. And these planes have been tampered with and actually been extruded so they can go ahead and get that type of look. And we'll go over terrain adjustments. But I just wanted to show you that they're basically objects that you go ahead and you place and plop those there. Here's a side that I want to show you. You guys see that right there, that mountain? It's just a basic plane, a basic surface right there. And you see how it is. And then you place trees, anything you need. That's what it looks like in the bottom. It's kind of interesting. But it's right there, and then you place your water where you want, you place your bridge, your objects. Here's the house that we went into earlier. So they're all basically basic structures that you can hit the F key to kind of zoom in. So the F is kind of like frame selection. And when you zoom in, it kind of becomes that rotating around. So you can go ahead and rotate around it. You can see the different texture maps they did to get that structure. And you'll see a lot of the tricks very soon that you'll be able to detect, like for example, some of the blinds inside are not really blinds, they're just flat objects to make them look like blinds. It's just basic texture maps. These are texture maps as well, so one texture maps, so they're not a bunch of papers. So that's when you need to start thinking creatively. It's like, what things do you need to be objects, and what things you can get away by them just being texture maps. So you don't have to texture map every single thing. I mean, you don't have to create every single tick and every single tape and footnote. No, if you're going to have all that, you can just turn it, especially that there's no character going to peel it or take it off. It's just part of your design. Then why create them? Unless there are elements that they actually need to pick up later on, whether it's their food, or their trash can, or their chair to maneuver. So any of these are fine. You can take them and move them around. Now you'll notice almost the same looking tools from all the different softwares. So again, you get your up and down, you get the front and back, and then side to side. And that's how we're using the move tool. Notice the move tool. If I wanted to rotate that chair, I'll go ahead and use the rotate tool. So I can rotate that tool to face this way or that way. And this is the scale tool if I wanted to scale the chair so it's bigger than the desk. Okay? So it's the same thing. I could turn it into a bench. A pretty awkward chair there. All right. And then again, the move tool, the rotate tool, and the scale tool. You'll notice that that's basically it. Like, you're going to be using these 90% of the time because the rest of the stuff you're going to be creating over there in Cinema 4D. So here's a bunch of tires. You'll see that there's basic cylinders, but with nice, transparency on them. And we'll go over texture mapping and transparency and making sure that your objects come in and they come in nice and clean. The idea why I want you to spend some time here, like click on elements and hit the F key, because I want you to see how all these things are very simple. See how the computer runs fast? There's even different modes that you can get into if you want high-res mode or low-res mode that we were talking about earlier. But you can see all these shelves are basically one texture map. So you don't always need, it's not, right?
Green is the collision model and blue is the actual.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, they did a bunch of inner extrudes right there. So kind of what you guys did. See that? That's really cool. So that's what we need, you know, the same inner screws that you guys learned how to do. And then with basic texture maps, you can see how things can really look like it's really nice. Does that make sense? So it's really cool how you can have basic models really nicely, think about how to texture map them, and they'll come out really, really good. Okay, so that's about the elements. I want to show you also here, for example, that side right there is just a texture map. So they didn't create every single thing. It's just one texture map and different panels. So they can create one panel and then just duplicate them as we go along. But some of the, you know, and what makes a really nice and interesting game is that you keep things not repetitive, you know, so things are sporadic, whether they're chaotic like that, or they're realistic, so you can put like a little rust right there, or they're kind of cartoony, and you get to really work on your placement of objects and texture maps and all that. Here's the lights. But it's really wonderful is that when you start walking and through your environment and actually experiencing the game and what you want it to do. Okay. So now let's take a look at how we actually get all these in there, and how does, you know, Unity work. So what I want you to do, first thing to do is go ahead and create a new project. So we're going to start a brand new project. If you say new scene, that's just going to create a new scene inside this project. Does that make sense? You're going to be working on, you know, so you don't want to be working on that bootcamp project. You want to start your own. So don't say new scene. Go ahead and say new project. So you're going to start a brand new project. So what you're going to go ahead and start is make sure that it has your name or the name of the game that you want. If you don't know or not sure yet about the name, go ahead and give it your name. So I really want you to keep the word project 1 in there. Why? Because we'll always know that this is a project that's Unity, so it's not, we won't confuse it with any Cinema 4D file or anything like that. So just give it your name. So I'm going to go ahead and change that to Mohammed. And we're going to call it Project 1. Later, we're going to be calling it Project 2, Project 3, Project 4 as we go ahead and excel. It won't go too far because most of it is just importing assets and bringing stuff in, and you can go ahead and just save. But at least we have it, you know, 01, 02, 3, 4, and so on and so forth. Okay. Next, we're going to go ahead and bring in some things. So at this moment, we don't need everything. We can bring everything, but we don't need it, so we don't want to bog down the machine too much. So we're going to go ahead and bring in character controllers. We don't really need light flares. We might need particles a little bit later on. Physics we don't really need right now. We definitely need scripts, skybox, standard assets, terrains, toon shading like Oba's game possibly. Tree creator if you want to use regular trees. And then water, to do some water if you guys want. So I would say let's all of us have the same thing, like turn all of them on except number 2, 3, 5, and 6. So we'll keep those off for now, and we're going to go ahead and say create. When it says create, it says, do you want to save changes you made into this scene? I'm going to say no, don't save. So I could care less about that project. It will close the project altogether, and we'll go ahead and import a brand new, or create a brand new project for you under assets. Okay, so once it goes and creates that, I want you to understand the look and feel of Unity. So remember, Unity is just a 3D space that allows you to bring in your objects from anywhere, whether Cinema 4D as we are doing, or maybe Maya later on as we do more stuff. But the idea is that we bring in a lot of elements. Now, it's not an edit, it's hard to edit your stuff, hard to edit your models or change your mind in Unity. So if you change your mind about your structure or your model, guess what? You got to go back into Cinema 4D and recreate it there and then re-import it. And that's why Unity will be the last resort, is after you're really sure about your object, you want to take a look at it. So it's not just for testing, but it's actually to make sure that you maintain your final assets in there so you can go ahead and start creating the structure and playing around with the environment and the game engine. Okay. So you won't be allowed to, like, you know, play with CVs, with points and stuff like that. You know, it will, you know, the best thing to be is to have your objects as done as possible so you can go ahead and enjoy playing with them. Okay, now Unity comes already custom with gravity, you know, so it understands what's up and down, so you don't have to worry too much about that. If you want to play around with the gravity, like you want an underground or underwater type of feel or going through water or going through a different type of environment, it's easily can be tweaked. As the different examples we showed from last year's projects where people wanted to do under the water, we changed it and added things like a double bounce. Things are a little bit slower and more murkier as you go along. So all these things are possible.